What's up, guys, and welcome to the Grand Empress Shek'Zir normal raid guide. As always, the abilities are going to be scrolling above my head. Let's get right into this one. This is the last boss in the Heart of Fear raid instance. Pretty fun boss. You are going to need 2 tanks for this fight. It is a 3-stage fight, but very, very good. Very, very well done. First off, in Phase 1, it's actually a pretty simple fight once you get the gist of the mechanics that are going on around you. In Phase 1, what you're doing is you're spreading out, right? You're staying, I think it's 5 yards of spread out. That's all you really have to be. After that, you're just nuking the boss, nuking the boss, nuking the boss. There's going to be 2 dissonance fields, which you see right there. That's what those orange circles are, okay? These will slowly drain themselves in life. When they hit 0 life, they will explode, causing a ton of damage to the raid. Pretty much what you want to do is you just don't want 2 of these to go off at the same time. So what you're doing is there's another ability called Cry of Terror that will be put on somebody for X amount of seconds. How Cry of Terror works is when you're not in a dissonance field, it will do AoE pulse damage to the raid. It's healable, it's just AoE pulse damage. What happens next is you want that person to go inside the dissonance field, continue what you're doing in the dissonance field. I can't explain this to you enough. You will not, you can still DPS the boss. You can still heal. You just can't receive heals, okay, while you're in the dissonance field. So you go in and you have to do abilities while you're in there, or else the dissonance field will not die quicker. That's the biggest thing, is these dissonance fields need to die at different times so that your healers have a chance to get everybody top back off before the next one goes out. That's the biggest thing. So when you get Cry of Terror, you run in. When you get down to about 50% health, just run out for a little bit, get healed back up, run back in. Just do this repeatedly until the debuff falls off. Just remember, when a dissonance field is about to explode, if you're inside of it when it explodes, you will die. No questions asked. GG. Don't do that. You don't have to be away from it. It doesn't matter how far away, as long as you're out of it. That's the biggest thing. Just be out when it explodes. But that's literally the only thing that you have to do in Phase 1, is if you get Cry of Terror, get in the designated dissonance field. Don't go to different ones. Go to the one that the guy before you was in, the one that the raid leader calls out. Make sure you go to the correct one. That's the most important thing. Then they explode, you just heal back up, you get healing cooldowns ready for during those explosions so everybody's topped off in time. And then it's a time thing, so after, I believe, 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, he will then go into Phase 2. This is what you're seeing here. Phase 2 is an add phase, essentially. All you're really doing is the tanks pick up the Reavers, okay? The tanks pick up the Reavers, the other guys that are running around the Windblades or whatever, they will fixate on a random target and then go back to the tank. So the tank does need to have aggro on them, but it's not a huge deal because they do fixate. So what you need to do as a raid for your DPS is you need to DPS those little ads down. Do not worry about DPSing the Reavers. If you're DPSing the Reavers, you're doing it wrong, and I'll explain why. What you see me doing is me and one of the warlocks in our group, of course, Aki's back, baby. So me and Aki took care of this for him. All you're doing is you'll see these little orange pools on the ground. Sticky resin. It will slow your movement. It will do ticking damage to you, but what you're doing is you're collecting them, bringing them to the same place, and starting your resin traps, okay? Typically it takes about 5 resin to make a trap if you do it quickly. Sometimes 6, sometimes 7, just depends how long it takes you. The trick with this is how it works is the people with the resin need to understand that the trap begins to form when 2 people with resin touch. It doesn't matter what 2 people touch, as long as it's those 2. As long as there's 2 resins, you will start forming a trap. What this means, okay, is resin will spawn underneath people. Now you do have time to get out of it, so if you're not a complete and utter tunneler in this fight, you will be fine. As soon as you see the resin underneath you, there's 2 options. You can move and let the designated resin people take care of it, which is probably the better idea if you're using that method. If you're using an everybody help method, you just bring the resin to the designated area where you're supposed to be making the next trap, and don't run through other people or resin traps while you do it. Why do I say this? Resin traps spawn on people, correct? If you're running your resin back to someone else and you run through someone else that has resin, you just started forming another trap, which means that your second trap is not going to take even longer to get formed Never a good thing. See what I'm saying? Make sure that you know that you're just running to where you're supposed to be and not through other people and not through other resin, because you don't want to form another trap until it's time to form another trap. So how our group did this is we just had me and the Warlock take care of it. It was our job to deal with it. Some people don't listen, that's okay. Figure it out. If you end up getting a resin, it's not like it's a raid wiper if you get a resin. Just bring it to where it's supposed to go. The reason we did it this way is just, it was more DPS. Everybody else could just focus DPS on the ads, and then we didn't have to deal with it. The other thing that you need to understand, guys, is in that second phase, the ad phase, is once that trap's formed, a tank needs to bring his Reaver into it. Now what will happen is all the rest of the ads, little ads, will then start trying to break that big ad out of the resin, okay? So that's why it's important to kill those little ads, is A, because they fixate and you don't want to get them in the traps. You only want to trap a Reaver. So when they're fixating, if you're fixated, think of two things, okay? If an ad's fixated, A, is he going to run into the trap? If the answer is yes, move your ass. B, is when he de-aggroes off me and heads back to the tank, is he going to run through a trap? Make sure that you know where your trap is being formed, where you are, where the tank is. That's really the only thing you need to do, is know where that is, because that way if you get fixated, you're doing that. So in phase 2, the healing, you're healing the crap out of the tanks, and the resin people will be taking some damage. That's for healing. Everybody else, understand, are you doing it where everybody helps with resin? If so, take your resin to the specific location, form your trap. Otherwise, DPS the ads. If you get fixated, don't get hit. That's it. The other thing that you have to do is, if you're not doing it that way, if you're doing it the way we did it, where you just have 2 people designated to mess with resin, get out of the resin, then watch you fixate. That's all you have to do in phase 2. Tanks, you will get hit extremely hard at the beginning of that phase because of all the ads up. So keep that in mind as well. Then it's rinse and repeat, guys. You go back to phase 1 and you will do this until you hit 30%. Now the trick here is you will get dissonance fields again, but not in phase 3. So you need to make sure that before you push him over 30% into phase 3 that there's not dissonance fields up, or it will kill you. This is phase 3 that you see right now, this big purple. What that means, and as you can see there, I did not get dispelled. Weird, huh? Weird. But what you're doing is you're all stacking up on the back of the boss. He will do this fear ability. You run out, you get dispelled, you run back in. Here's the trick. If you don't get dispelled, you're just going to sit there, you're not going to do any damage, it's bad. It means your dispeller / healer is failing. If you're a healer or you have a dispel, use the damn thing. That's what this phase is for. It's about burning the boss. It's where you're popping hero, doing everything else. The only other abilities, you see the big purple cone he puts out in a random location. What he's doing there is if you get caught in that, it will pretty much mess you up. Throughout this phase, he does an ability that drops everybody to 50% of their HP. So it's not really a killing ability. The problem is if you get caught by these other things with that, then you get killed. Okay, that's how you die in this phase. There's a ton of raid damage, but it's not fatal raid damage unless other abilities are combined with it. You see what I'm saying? So the healers do need to be on top of the game. You do need to cycle cooldowns to keep everybody at full as best you can, but you need to understand that you need to get out of your abilities, and you need to do, there's only 2 things you need to do, right? Is stay out of the purple and run out and get dispelled and run back in. That's, as your healer and DPS, that's your only jobs. Tanks, you're switching. If you guys can do that stuff, it's an easy fight. It's only 3 phases and there's not a lot to worry about. The trick is if you mess up, you kill the whole raid. So just understand that don't stress out. There's not a lot to do. Just do it right and you'll get this boss down. Hope you liked it. Like and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.